It's our showtime. Greed has its price. You should have been prepared.
Hey guys, MrPokke here, back with another video, and today we are gonna be talking about the most hyped up unit in Wuthering Waves. That's right, today's episode on CN unit analysis is going to be on Yinlin. Right, and without further ado, let's get into today's content.
Subscribe!
As per usual, we're just gonna jump right into her kit, her weapons, idolants, all that kind of stuff, team comps, and we're gonna be talking a little bit about some practical usage, right? So let's just jump right into the content today, and that's gonna be that over here. Jumping right into her kit. Basic attack, very, very normal, just does her very wide AoE, 4 different stages of basic attack. Keep in mind, the multipliers for Yinlin's basic attack is honestly not that great compared to like your say main DPS like Cultura, right? Also, her attack animations, they are pretty slow. So you can see that there's quite a bit of drag. What I mean by drag is, if you take a look at this, especially her 3 and 4, it takes a little bit of wind up time. Her 1 and 2 is still pretty quick, right? Her 1 and 2 is still quite okay. But for 3 and 4, it is a little bit long. So do take that into your considerations if you're going to be using her to attack the enemies. Don't get hit, right? Don't get hit. So you can kind of alleviate this with her skill or by swapping out, right? By swapping out to kind of reduce the drag. For her skill, we're going to jump right in. Her skill is also quite basic. 2 different skills. First stage, you go into this enhanced form to empower your basic attack chains, and the second stage is basically another big hit, right? So that is gonna be it. This enhanced basic attack, this is not judgment, this is not the punishment mark judgment, it is a separate attack, triggers up to 4 times, which is just nice. 4 times of Yinlin's basic attack, right? And then the last segment is gonna be another hit over here that has also have a pretty decent wind up time, I would say, up to the maximum. When you charge your judgment to the maximum, upon reaching the maximum stack for your purple bar, she can then cast the sit. Okay, what I mean by the sit is basically this, right? This is the sit. Upon reaching max judgment, her heavy attack is replaced with Chameleon Cipher. Consumes all judgment points to attack the target while dealing electro damage. If they have Sinner's Mark, the Sinner's Mark will then be replaced with Punishment Mark. Punishment Mark is going to be the core fundamental of Yinlin's kit. And if you take a look at the multiplier for the heavy attack is also quite decent. It's a 260% multiplier for a heavy attack, which is really not too bad. But because if you take a look at the basic, the multipliers for the basic, they are really, really low, right? It is only like 50-ish%, and this is just not that great. But the main thing is going to be coming from the Punishment Mark. So the difference between Sinner's Mark and Punishment Mark is that for Sinner's Mark, the mark lasts only if Yinlin is on the field. Punishment Mark, it will last even when she is not on the field. Yep, Sinner's Mark is removed when Yinlin exits. And you can apply Sinner's Mark with your normal attacks, right? You can also apply it with your intro attack. You can also apply it with your ultimate. You can also apply it with your... All this can apply Sinner's Mark, right? The Punishment Mark can only be triggered by using Chameleon Cipher to transform Sinner's Mark into Punishment Mark. And that should be your goal with Yinlin, which is to basically stack up your mark as fast, as quick as possible. So right now you can see you start with 0. You wanna kind of just slap this on as much as you can. And the moment you can make this to full, notice how you shouldn't swap instantly, because if you were to swap now, the little puppet, it's gone. Right, the puppet is gone. You lose the Sinner's Mark, and you have to reapply again. To apply the little puppet, you can see on the battlefield, right? Only when the puppet is there, then you cast Chameleon Cipher, you will have the Judgment Mark. So now you can see Judgment Mark is applied by the purple triangle. And then every time any of your units attack, it will apply the little thunder falling from the target. This can be your main DPS, this can be your support, your sustain, this can be Yinlin herself as well. Anyone can apply Judgment Mark and can freely swap in here and there, right? So you can also reapply this, so just get this back up to full again. So that's gonna be rotation, get this back up to full, and then you cast a sit, and then apply Judgment, and then you pretty much clear it, right? So that's basically the rough gist of how Yinlin works. You really don't want her to leave the battle if Judgment is not applied. So that is going to be that. Then Yinlin's ultimate. Yinlin's ultimate is a very, very large AoE damage to multiple targets. And also, one of the best ultimate animations we have seen in a really, really long time, right? So, pretty much a very, very raw AoE damage line. You can see here, a very, very big hit. And all of the mobs here, they are going to get hit. You can see, let's take a look at how big this area is, right? All these targets that are not really even that close, they are all getting hit by this ultimate. The radius of this ultimate is very, very big. So you can use this to clear your overworld, clear your mobs. Very, very good for acceleration progress. This can apply Sinner's Mark as well. Before we talk about Ultra skill, just a little bit of a tip. Using your skills first phase, you get a 15% crit rate buff for 5 seconds. Using your skills Lightning Execution, you'll increase damage by 10% when you deal damage with Sinner's Mark, as well as a 10% attack buff. So ideally, before you even cast your ultimate, you do want to let go of your skills first to get a little bit of a damage bump. So usually, your combination of Yinlin would involve skill, ultimate, skill. Something like this, right? You don't want to just raw dog into ultimate immediately because you do want to kind of get a better mileage from this. Yeah, so that's just pretty much a tidbit good to know. Then jump into the Ultra skill. I'm just going to show you over here. Increase your damage. This has been reworded. It used to be deepened. They have changed it to amplified. I guess is to reduce the confusion by the players. So it's now amplified. It is not electro damage deepened. It is amplified by 20% as well as liberation damage by 25% for 14 seconds or until they are switched off field. So this buff is gonna be really, really good for any electro DPS or any DPS that can make use of your liberation damage. And the only unit that can kind of make use of both at the same time is going to be Calchero. Pretty much, right? So very, very good pairing with Culture, but do keep in mind that the moment you switch them out, then this buff is going to be gone. So that's pretty much the fundamental of Yinlin's kit. For minor tracers, you also do get a 1.2% crit rate here, 2.8% crit rate for a combined total of 8% crit rate from a tracers alone, as well as a very good amount of attack buff. This is going to be, I believe this 12% attack buff. So 12% attack and 8% crit rate. So very, very nice, right? So that is going to be the fundamentals of Yinlin's kit. So rotations for Yinlin, it's pretty much E, then A. You can cancel a dread by using another skill, right? That is kind of basically the gist of it. It's quite easy. So just cast a skill, basic, and then you cast a skill. But you can also do basic, and then for this, you instantly cast a skill, right? So you can do this, boom, right? Something like this. But this is going to be quite flexible depending on if the boss is down or not down. You can also sometimes, if that boss is like super fast, you can just do this. You can just instantly cast a skill and then just do basic as much as you can, and then just swap out, right? That's depending if you want to stack up your console energy. So yeah. Going into her usage, Yinlin as a unit, although the ultimate does deal quite a big amount of AoE damage, the highest proportion of a damage, similar to how Tian, right? Tian, a very large proportion is going to be from her heavy. The highest proportion of Yinlin's kit is going to be coming from resonance scale damage, because Judgment is going to be scaling with your resonance scale damage. So the fundamental cycle of how Yinlin works is you cast a skill, you deal additional damage with a skill, and then trigger your heavy attack, the Camille Cypher, to apply Judgment. Right, the moment you apply Judgment, that's when she will enter into this little cooldown, which is where Yinlin's DPS will start to taper off. Because the skill has a 12-second cooldown. You need to wait for the ultimate, you know, the skill come back up, and their hands will only last for 4 attacks. Then you swap back into your main DPS during this downtime to fill in the gap. And then once the skill comes back up, you can then swap right back to Yinlin and repeat the same thing all over again. Notice how for Judgment, it is applied for 18 seconds. So technically speaking, Judgment with proper rotations should have a 100% uptime, because your skill cooldown is 12 seconds and your Judgment cooldown is 18 seconds. So yeah, this is roughly 1.5 times the damage of your skill. Or your judgment damage is going to be 1.5 times damage on skill. So a big portion of her kit is from judgment, especially as a sub DPS. So you do want to generate your judgment as soon as possible in order to use a heavy attack and then cycle out, right? So it is always about a quick rotations, and that's how fundamentally how Yinlin works. So one thing to note is that the one full basic attack over here is going to be 21 points of judgment. So your 4 auto attacks is going to be 21 points of judgment. And then your 2 skills is going to be recovering 30 points and 10 points respectively, because you can use your skill twice, right? So that's going to be 40 points. And then after using your skill into another enhanced base attack, is going to be 41 points. So intro skill is going to be 30 points. So for a E0 Yinlin, after using your intro skill, you can use 1 enhanced basic with 2 sets of skill to instantly fill up your judgment to full, right? 1 intro, cast 1 E, basic attack 4 times, and cast E again to get 100 points of judgment. So that's going to be roughly how her rotation is going to work. If you do not have Yinlin's intro skill, then you need to apply your basic attack 1 more time to kind of fill up this gap, right? Also, there's going to be 2 different marks. One is going to be Sinner's mark, right? This is going to be the small one, and one is going to be the judgment mark, which is going to be seen from this purple triangle right here, right? Sinner's mark, like I mentioned, it disappears if you switch it off. Judgment mark, it lasts all the way, right? So this is not going to be the core gameplay. This is only going to be on field for a very short while. You do want to change into judgment as soon as possible. You can see if you swap here, the puppet is gone, and then when you swap back in, then you need to reapply the Sinner's mark once again, right? So you don't really want to do that. Ideally, you want to proc into a judgment mark and then swap out so that your healers, your main DPS or sub DPS Yinlin, they can all apply this lightning for all targets hit. Note that this is going to be for all target hits. So meaning to say, even if your support, like your Verena, she only hits 1 target, every single unit will receive damage from judgment. So anyone with judgment mark will receive this thunder from the sky hitting them, right? So this is gonna pseudo transform your team into like a AoE DPS or even your sustains, right? So very good effect, and you really want this to be up pretty much almost 100% of the time in order to ensure a smooth game. So even Verena, she can put in a little bit of damage, right? Anyone can apply the judgment. For Montage, you know how Montage, there's a little bit of a coordinated attack. It is only for your unit's heavy attack. So if you don't use heavy attack, like for example, if you're using Verena's base attack, it doesn't really trigger. Whereas for Yinlin, anyone with any attack can trigger judgment falling from the sky. So that's gonna be really good, inclusive of echoes, right? So even if you use echoes to attack, so pretty much anything works, right? So just go here. Okay, this is specifically for Calchero. So both Calchero and Yinlin, they have a cooldown on the skills, and it's quite long, right? 12 seconds. The cooldown, it will go into waste if you didn't use Yinlin's secondary skill. So one skill, there's a second portion, but if you swap and go back, it's gone, it's wasted. So you don't really want to waste this skill, and you want to use both instances of skills before swapping back. Not mainly just for the damage, even though the damage is there, but also for your judgment, right? For your judgment, for your energy, for your console energy, right? So just a little tip for Calchero and Yinlin, or honestly any main DPS of Yinlin, you can always gonna make use of it. So that's gonna be that. So one example that you guys can think of is if you want to quickly stack up your resonance energy, you can use 2E consecutively. And after using 2E consecutively, and then begin using your basic attacks, right? And the moment you have your basic attacks done, you can then trigger the rest of the kit. You don't have to finish all 4 hits of your basic attack, is what I'm saying. So let go of your skill first, and then continue with basic attack. So yeah. Then after that, you can cast your ultimate, and the rotation just goes as follow. Strongest teammate, or rather one of the strongest team for Yinlin as of this current moment, is going to be Calchero, Yinlin, and Verena. Main reason is just because of Yinlin's outro. You have a 20% electro damage deepen, as well as a 25% liberation damage, right? Lasting for 14 seconds. Very suitable for Calchero. And how exactly do we play this team? To understand how this team functions, you kind of also need to understand swap cancelling, right? Swap cancelling is when if your attack animation is very long, for example, Encore over here, the charge is very long. You want to swap to another unit to deal damage during this damage downtime in order to maximize the DPS of your entire team per se. That is basically how it's gonna function with Calchero and Yinlin. For Calchero specifically, for your heavy attack at 3 stacks of mercy, when he jumps up, you can swap into your other team. So ideally you want to use Calchero's heavy attack, swap to Verena, use her skill, use her basic, and then swap to Yinlin to use her skill, use her kit, and then swap back into Calchero, right? So during this very long wind-up time where Calchero jumps up into the air, there's no downtime for your team because everybody is doing something at the same time. That being said, for the current game, the difference between CBT3 as well as the current game, the Yinlin's outro skill, which is going to be the electro damage as well as the liberation damage buff, it will disappear if you were to swap out. So this swap cancelling mechanic, it should only be reserved before you have anyone's considered energy at full, right? So if you don't really have the outro skill yet, then you can use this to upsize your damage output, right? So it's like your warm-up. Before you can let go of everything, it's like your warm-up while you are dealing damage. So for example, if you're gonna be against Power of Adversity, where you do not have your outro skill yet, so first you want to hit with your Verena skill, open up with Verena, swap into Yinlin, you have 10 out of 100 for your conservative energy. Cast a ERE, like I mentioned just now, skill, ultimate skill. To maximize your damage, there's going to be 55 out of 100 conservative energy. And then as you cast your second E, you can swap into Calchero. At this point, we still do not have a conservative energy, right? So now we can just do whatever we're doing. And then once we have 3 stacks of Mercy, we can cast a heavy attack, swap back into Yinlin, use our enhanced basic attack because you know the skill bars our enhanced basic attack. By hitting our third basic attack, we can swap back to Calchero using our Echo skill. This is going to be 80 out of 100. And then swap back to Yinlin again. And at this point, casting our Judgment to full, we'll have our Concerto skill ready to swap back into Calchero. And then we can cast our ultimate and just let it rip. So at this point, Calchero is going to be permanently all the way there until his ultimate is done. And then you rinse and repeat, right? So that is pretty much going to be a rotation that we can use in Tower of Adversity. In the overall, it doesn't really matter that much because it's always going to be changing. So yeah, one thing to keep in mind is if you were to hit one target, you regenerate 5 conservative energy. But if you hit 3 targets or multiple targets, you'll recover 15 conservative energy, which is this little bar right here. So against mob content or AoE content where you can hit a lot of enemies at once, you can very quickly charge up this intro outro skill mechanic. And not only does it buff your DPS damage, it also reduces enemies' vibration health, right? It's like the toughness buff. So against AoE content, Yinlin can charge this extremely quickly. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. So with that said, the damage distribution for Yinlin is going to be as seen over here. Resonance chain 0 to resonance chain 5. 55.6% is going to be coming from skill damage. And then the rest of the stuff is going to be from a heavy attack, basic attack, as well as your ultimate, right? And then this is going to be added. But at resonance chain 6, then this is going to go up even higher for the skill. Because the additional multiplier that you get from the Resonance Chain 6, it is also considered as Resonance skill damage. So TLDR, Resonance skill damage is gonna be the pretty much most important subs that you can get aside from double crit. Alright, so going into your build. Alright, so this is gonna be the assumptions with 25% attack, 24% crit rate, 48% crit damage, as well as 25% effective stats. 2 main stat involving elemental damage, right? Your 3 costs, as well as 2 attack percentage 1 costs. So this is a 4-3-3-1 setup. TLDR for Yinlin, it is not recommended to raise her with main DPS into consideration because it can be quite difficult to raise her as a main DPS, especially if you're not at Resonance Chain 6. So for this, they do recommend a 4-3-3-1 setup running the Cloud set. Crit rate, crit damage, signature icon 1. Alright, get your standard double crit. Alright, this is gonna be 1 on energy regeneration and 1 on attack / electro damage. The reason why they wanted 1 on energy regeneration here is Yinlin fundamentally needs roughly 130% energy regeneration. So if you're able to get energy regeneration for your subsets, then this can honestly be changed into attack / electro damage, right? So this is going to be for the Cloud set. Then subset distribution, crit damage over attack percentage over skill damage, and then your flat attack is roughly the same as your resonance liberation damage. If you do want to raise her as a main DPS or just increase her personal damage by a lot, then Thundering set is gonna give you a higher damage increase, right? So we're still gonna be rolling 4-3-3-1 because this is gonna be the end game. So that's gonna be that. Between Tempest and Thundering, Tempest is gonna be better because you can swap cancel, and swap canceling with Yinlin is gonna be very crucial. So do get your Tempest over Thundering. Then for 3 costs, it's gonna be attack. You can run your energy regeneration if you want to, but if you can At that point, if you get E6, there's the Yinlin Resonance Chain 2, which gives you additional energy. So you might not even need the ER main set anymore, right? So that's gonna be that. One cost is still exactly the same, sub distribution is still exactly the same, right? At this point, the difference between 43311 and 44111 is gonna be as follows. So 44111 is always gonna deal less damage. I think that has been pretty abundantly clear. So if you're gonna be running a signature weapon, it is around 8% higher. This is the standard weapon, is about 7% higher. S5 Battle Pass weapon is going to be 10% higher, as well as S5 Jingzhou Keeper is going to be around 8% higher. So LDR 431 is always going to be dealing roughly 8% higher damage compared to 44111, right? So that's going to be that. Before we continue into the weapon portion, I do want to point out one thing, which is as of this current moment of recording, 7th of June, there has been a lot of debate. Do you run the cloud set or the thunder set, right? So I have another calculation here done by another CN content creator. This is gonna be the cloud set and this is gonna be the thunder set, right? For both, this is gonna be double thunder for Calchero and Yinlin. So in this case, for E0S1 and E0S1, Yinlin and Calchero, cloud set outperforms thunder set by roughly 10,000 across 51 seconds. Whereas for E6S1, that's when thunder set will outperform cloud set by roughly 60,000 across 53 seconds. There has been a lot of debate as to which one is better. So you can see that the comment chain, there's been every single comment so far in CN, it has been discussing whether it's cloud set better, is thunder set better, and they are all still theorizing because there are a lot of assumptions to be made. It is not strictly just over like your damage number, because at the end of the day, this theory crafted eliminations, right? It's theory crafted math. It is not exactly perfect. You can't really know if this is going to be ideal and can't really go is realistic. So there are situations where, for example, for different scenarios against AoE targets, against multiple targets, this person says thunder is going to be better. Against single target, then cloud is going to be better. And then there's going to be another scenario, right? If you're going to be using an overworld, if you use cloud set, then Yinlin's damage is going to be very low. Also, then there's going to be another example, right? The higher, even though it's going to be cloud set, but he tested both sets. I can only say most of the time the main DPS is not going to be in the ideal scenario, right? For example, Calchero's calculations in the theory crafted scenario is going to be very high, but in reality, your main DPS damage output is probably not going to be as high because the enemies moves all over the place. Calchero, he also has a pretty slow, and especially when he jumps up, he might miss all that kind of stuff. So there's been a lot of debate. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to comment if you guys are going to be thinking which one is fundamentally better, cloud versus thunder, because as of this moment, there has been no conclusive discussion yet. But I do want to say this one thing. Farming for two different thunder sets is going to be way harder compared to farming one thunder set and one cloud set. It is going to be way harder. Not to mention, your cloud set, a good DPS cloud set, you can in fact share this with a lot of your sub DPS. Your Mortefi, your Sanhua, your Yang, right? They can all run the cloud set. So from a stamina and versatility perspective, cloud set, it is technically more efficient. We're not talking about absolute min-max who deals the most damage. If you are just considering efficiency, then cloud set is gonna be the better choice, right? Also, one other thing to consider is that for your 4-cost, this 4-cost Impermanence Heron, it is very quick to swap, right? The moment you can cast, you can just instantly swap out. And this effect is also quite beneficial as compared to Tempest Memphis, right? So all things considered, if you're just thinking about efficiency, you don't really care about the little bit of difference, 5%, 10% difference. If you just want to care about efficiency, then cloud set is going to be the better choice for players to build. And then for your main DPS, you can just slap on the 5-piece thunder set, and then this is going to be cloud set. And you can just share this with everyone. Because keep in mind, guys, in Wuthering Waves, you can share your echoes, weapons between different units across different teams, especially in the current endgame content, right? So take that into consideration. Okay, moving on. All right, for your weapons, there's a very decent increase, right? Keep in mind the second part is only gonna be active if you swap out of Yinlin, right? Otherwise, this second part is not gonna be even into consideration, so keep in mind. But generally, between signature weapon at S1, the difference between signature weapon and the standard weapon, it is roughly 8% higher. And then the next best in slot is going to be the Battle Pass weapon at S5. It's going to be roughly 11% higher. And then Jingzhou's Keeper is roughly around 19% higher. So if you are gonna be getting the standard weapon, then if you just save your airstrikes, you can consider skipping the signature weapon, right? Because the difference is not, say, an insane amount, right? Every single time you get a superimpose, right? If you get an additional dupe, it's roughly 4 to 5% damage increase, final damage increase, right? So if you get S5, then it's gonna be a roughly a 20-ish to 25% damage increase. That being said, this signature weapon is gonna be very, very good for Encore as well. I'm not sure if they show it over here. No, they don't really show it. But basically, Encore can make use of this signature weapon very, very well. So if you are going to be an Encore main, you can consider pulling for Yinlin's signature weapon just for Encore, right? So last portion, going into her Resonance Chain. Resonance Chain 1, increase your skill damage by roughly 70%, but final damage increase only roughly 7% because as we know, her skill, her E, is not that big of a damage constitution, right? So only a 7% damage increase, not that crazy. Resonance Chain 2, auto increase by 20 judgment points as well as 20 ultimate energy, right? So because it's 4 different hits, honestly makes her cycle feel a little bit more comfortable. But if you don't really feel that big of a difference, especially if you're going to be getting AoE content, then you won't really feel it, right? Resonance Chain 3 is going to be the big one. So this is going to be the first breakthrough. Increase your multiplier by 55%. So this final damage increase is going to be the biggest at 21.9%, right? Between Resonance Chain 1, 2, and 3, 3 is going to be the first big breakthrough, right? Increase final damage multiplier by 21.9%. That's going to be very nice. Resonance Chain 4, whole team attack by 20%, roughly increased by 8.9%. Not that big of a deal compared to Resonance Chain 3. And then Resonance Chain 5, 6.1%. Honestly, also not that big compared to Resonance Chain 3. And then the next biggest increase is going to be the R6. Additional 419.59%, up to 4 times per hit whenever you use the ultimate. This is gonna be a insane 51% final damage increase. So Resonance Chain 6 is gonna be the biggest bump for Yinlin. Keep in mind this also considers Resonance skill damage. After taking these considerations, this is gonna be the graph over here. 7%, 21.9, 8.9, 6.8, and 51%. So TLDR, if you are a player considering to get her dupes, honestly, you can either consider stopping at E0S1 or E6S1. There is not really an in-between because the only big bump is going to be from her Resonance Chain 3. So is it really worth it to pull 3 different Yinlings just for this Resonance Chain 3? That is going to be up to you, but it is costing quite a bit more compared to most units, for example, at Resonance Chain 1 or 2, right? So it might not be that worth for you. So really, if you are going to be thinking about putting for her dupes, it is either E0S1 or all the way to E6S1, right? So because at E0S1, she is pretty much going to be complete. You don't really need to care about the Resonance Chain 1 and 2. If you want to care about 3, then you might just go all the way for E6, right? So that is going to be that. Now, I believe my editor have a little bit of B-rolls. So editor, feel free to include a B-roll over here, and then we can just kind of wrap it up, right? Insert some insane Q battle montage music, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Yo, did my camera die again? With that, we've come to the end of today's content. We're not engaged in any further discussion here on the comments below at discord.g/POKE. We're a very active community about Wuthering Waves and we connect on daily basis. Watch my stream. That's so that's all I have for today. All the best for your Yinlin pulls, and I'll see you guys next time.